Good morning, and let me share with you something interesting. Deuteronomy 20:19. This is the Torah portion study for this week that we'll be doing tomorrow in our learning channel. And I found this verse somewhat interesting in the way that modern translators, translated it. When thou shalt besiege a city a long time in making war against it, thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them. For thou mayest eat of them, and thou shalt not cut them down. For the tree of the field is man's life, to employ them in the siege. It goes through a lot of trouble talking about trees, and don't harm the trees when you're doing battle. That's why even mention it? It just seems to go without reason that you want to keep trees around, and because they do provide fruit and so forth. And it just seems to really go into real detail for something that seems superfluous. And sages recognize this. That's why they translate that final phrase, "For the tree of the field is man's life." They translate it exactly from the Hebrew, which is saying that the tree of the field is a man. Well, that doesn't make sense. And I looked through 27 modern English translations, and 25 of the 27 all walked in lockstep with the rest of the other translators and paraphrased that last part, because they think the context is talking about sparing the trees for food, and therefore the tree is the life of man. Because if you'll notice, certain translations, they'll put the words "for the tree of the field is man's life" in parentheses, and then they put brackets around the word "is" and the word "life." Now, you may wonder, why do translators use parentheses and brackets when they're not found in the Hebrew language? Well, the reason is simple. They're telling you and being honest with you, they haven't the slightest idea how to translate this. And so they're telling you outright, this is just my guess. It's my paraphrase. Because literally it reads, "The tree of the field is a man." We are trees. Well, that's kind of degrading to call yourself a tree, unless you're a big oak tree, a mighty oak tree. And as my 7th grade science teacher used to say, cheer up, class. The mighty oak trees were once just a nut like you are. Yeah, we didn't laugh back then either when he said that. Anyways, it is, I guess maybe translators feel it's a little degrading to call us a tree, or maybe they just didn't think it fit the context. Whatever their reasons were, only 2 translations. One, the Young's Literal, and of course, Young's Literal is a literal translation. They translate word for word. And, they call man a tree. And then the Jewish Bible, JPS, because the sages see a reason why grammatically it does read that man is a tree, because they read something much deeper. They don't take just, they do believe in what they call a peshat, read the literal, but also dig deeper, look underneath. In that literal translation, you have a hint. It's called a remez, that there might be something deeper. There might be a deeper message. And to them, the remez is the fact that it's making such a big deal about sparing the trees that just seems superfluous to them. Therefore, they take that as a hint, a remez, that there's something much deeper here. And what they said is much deeper, they move to what's called the next level of their study, called a dresh. And that's to search it out and find what that deep meaning is, using, different understandings of the Hebrew language, using grammar, using every letter, even translating letter by letter rather than word by word. and looking at word plays and examining how words are used in other Semitic languages, all to draw out this message which brings you to the last, called Sod. In fact, they have an acronym called Paradis, which means paradise in Aramaic. And it's Peshat, Resh, Dresh, or Remez, Dresh, and Sod. And Sod is a deep understanding. Some say mystical understanding, but you need to interpret mystical as a personal relationship with God, where you talk to God and God talks to you and you hear him. In that case, we're all mystics, at least all of us in the evangelical world, according to that definition of mysticism. And so what they did was examine trees. What about trees? Well, one thing they discovered is trees have roots, very strong roots. It has a trunk. It has branches, it has leaves, and many bear fruit. The fruit bearing is part of the reproduction, where other trees are formed. And yet the life of the tree lies within the roots. The tree is as healthy as its roots are. The roots is which brings nourishment from the ground and nutrients from the ground to the rest of the tree, through the branches and the leaves and into the fruit. And if you have strong roots, you're going to have good fruit. If you have strong roots, you're going to have a strong tree. And then they make the comparison to us, just as I'll make the similar comparison to the church. The church has the fruit bearers, and the fruit that grows on the tree are your new converts, and they're just fawned over, and they're treated like heroes when they join the church. New converts. That's the whole purpose of the church, is to get converts. And then you have the leaves, the beautiful leaves, the colorful leaves. They're like the emotional part of the church. They're the ones who sing beautifully, play musical instruments. They're in the worship team, and they're in their teaching positions. And then you have the tree trunk. That's the strong part of the tree. They are the pillars of the church, the elite of the church, the ones who are your biggest donors, your biggest tithers, and they're always part of the pastor's inner circle. And then you have the roots. The roots, roots are not very glamorous. The roots are usually hidden under the ground. They're not very beautiful. And they're just, nobody notices the roots, pay attention to them. They don't even see the roots. But sages teach us that the roots represent faith. Faith isn't glamorous. You don't see faith. It's something that is sort of like hidden away, just as the roots are hidden away. And yet, without the roots, without faith, the church won't survive. And the roots of the church, they're not always the musicians and the singers and the talented and the gifted. They're not the elite, the rich who are part of the pastor's inner circle. They're usually the Miss Bettys of the church. I told you about Miss Betty. She's just, average woman, kind of childlike in her thinking. She is very much opposed to America and the world space programs going to Mars, because she believes that we're going to bring those Martians back and just enslave them. And as far as she's concerned, it's their planet. Let them have it. We have no business going up there and taking over their planet. She feels sorry for those poor Martians. She believes it. I'll tell you what else she believes. She believes there's a God out there who hears her prayers and answers her prayers. And let me tell you something. She's the roots of that church. People like her. She's the one that whenever the church service ends, she's the one that's going around cleaning up the, scattered papers laying around, dusting the benches, the pews. She's the one pushing the vacuum cleaner, bringing a broom, sweeping the floors. She's the one at the socials. You can find her in the kitchen doing the dishes and doing the preparations. And she's also the one that when those leaders of the church, when those pillars of the church, when those gifted and awesome singers and musicians in the church and great teachers in the church need prayer, have an urgency for prayer, she's the one standing in her closet, on her knees in that janitor's closet, storming heaven. And they're usually in that janitor's closet with her, storming heaven with prayers, because she has the faith. She believes. She knows God answers prayer. Boy, if you need prayer, you want to go to Miss Betty, because when Betty prays, man, she prays up a storm. And those are the ones who keep that church alive. Those are the ones who guarantee the success of a church. Not the musicians, not the great talent, not the gifted. They're nothing without that prayer. Without that prayer, they're just simply entertainers, simply competing against the movie industry, the television industry, the internet, entertainment on the internet, because their church is just another form of entertainment. It's the roots that create the power in the church. And they're hidden. You don't see them. Boy, if you need prayer, seek them out. Because they're the ones who can really create a storm when they start praying. It's the roots that when the enemy comes against the church, the storms of the world come against the church, as is happening now, as churches are not able to meet the capacity. They're only allowed a certain number in their services, as they're facing persecution if they do try to meet more than those numbers. They're the ones who are going to help the church survive. They're the heroes, because that tree, when the storms come, if its roots aren't strong enough, those trees will be blown down. And if those trees are dead, those are the first trees to fall when the storms come. And I really believe the storms are coming. They've already started, and the winds are going to get stronger. They're going to reach hurricane force. And the churches that are dead, they're going to be the first to fall. And the churches that are depending on their great teachers and their great musicians, they're going to be the next to fall. And the only ones left standing after that storm passes are those who have the strong roots. Those who have the Miss Bettys in the church that you laugh at for believing in Martians. But if they believe in Martians, they also believe there's a God out there who answers prayer. A God who's with them 24/7. A God to whom whatever they do as unto him.